talking in. So if you remember, I created this GSSHA model for, this is Park City, Utah, in the United States here. And I have some radar rainfall data for this. I just wanted to show you how to read in radar rainfall data and use that in GSSHA if you have that information. So right now, if I go to my GSSHA and look at the precipitation, I'm using a rainfall hyetograph. This is the graph I'm using. If I want to change this model to use radar rainfall data, I go to the GSSHA menu. This is the 2D. I select my 2D grid, or go to the 2D grid module, go to the GSSHA menu, select precipitation, and change my rainfall type to NEXRAD radar. And it doesn't have to be NEXRAD. It could be, if you have satellite data, you could use that. But then I select this import radar data command. And then I can add ArcInfo ASCII grid files, and I can convert those to incremental distribution rain gauges. So we'll add some radar rainfall data. These are just some ArcInfo ASCII grids. They're ASCII grids, so they're just text files. And to read these, I have to select the files that I want. So I just select all these files that I want. I start with, well, let's just select those files and we'll see what happens. So these numbers here, this first, so KMTX, that's my radar station. NTP is the precipitation type. 2007, that's the year where this data came from. 07 is the month, so July 26, 2007 is this data. And then the time is the last thing, so the time is 3:58 in the morning. So it's 24-hour data. Yeah.
The name of the file should be in this format. The name of the file should be in this.
It doesn't have. It can be in any format that you want. It doesn't have to. The extension could be anything you want also. So the extension could be TXT or ASC, or there could be no extension. It doesn't matter. WMS doesn't look at the extension. It doesn't look at the name of the file at all.
And this file, is it a matrix file?
It's a grid. Yeah, it's a rainfall grid, and it doesn't have to match your GSSHA grid. It just has to cover that area. So it has to cover the area where your GSSHA grid is located. So we start at the 6 o'clock on July 25th, 2007, then 7 o'clock, then 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And radar data doesn't come exactly every hour. It actually comes about every 6 minutes. So I just get the closest radar rainfall grids to the hours. And so 6, 7, 8, 9, or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to go from 6 at night to 4 in the morning. And we're going to start on July 27th. So I'm going to set the dates here. The starting date is 7 27, 2007. The time is 6 o'clock. Oops. So that's 18, well, I guess 6 p.m. is the time, starting time. The time interval is 60 minutes. And the values, we're just going to assume that the values on these rainfall grids, we're just going to multiply them by 1. So when I select this OK button, WMS is going to do a couple of things. I can turn on this option to create a 2D grid rainfall data set. I'm going to go ahead and do that, create the 2D grid rainfall data set. So WMS is going to read in all these grids. It's going to create a rain gauge coverage that has all of these precipitation gauges in it. Just the grid cells are converted to precipitation gauges. And it also creates a couple of data sets. And so let's look at some of this information. The other thing that WMS does is it gives me this summary report. So this is the amount of rainfall at each of these times. And so the incremental amount of rainfall and then the total rainfall. And these are average values over the whole grid. So I might have different values at different cells in my grid. So these are the average values. And it gives me the total storm duration and the total storm depth. I could use that just to verify that my results from the gridded data are correct. I could just enter this as a Hayeta graph.
Is this for average over the catchment?
Yeah, this is the average. And then I select this option to use my gridded rainfall gauges in GSSHA. And there are a couple of different options. I could either do IDW, inverse distance weighted rainfall, or I could do Thiessen polygons. Let's use this IDW option. The other thing that WMS does is it computes some data sets. So I have this cumulative rainfall data set that just shows for each of those time steps. It's kind of hard to see with the gridded gauges on, but for each of these time steps you can view the contours of rainfall. So these contours represent rainfall contours, cumulative rainfall in my watershed. Also, I have incremental rainfall, and that's just as the time goes on, I get different incremental rainfall values at different times, and it just shows those incremental rainfall values. So it's kind of like looking at a weather map, an animated weather map. Then I can run GSSHA. So I go to GSSHA, select Run GSSHA, and GSSHA will use these radar rainfall values to compute the rainfall. Hit OK. And then GSSHA will run. And it'll take a little bit longer. Radar data takes a little bit longer. But WMS writes out all the files you need to get to compute the rainfall. And let's just wait till this is done and we'll look at the results.
Here in the GSSHA, you have only one basic. You can't divide this. If I have a big basic, it's possible to divide this to sub-basics?
Yeah, there's no way to have sub-basins in GSSHA. You're just assuming everything is in one watershed, but you don't really need to divide the basins because it's a 2D model. You're defining data for each cell in your 2D model, so there's really no need to divide the basins. Every cell is kind of like its own basin.
Yeah, but sometimes you need to have some locations, and you want to know the flow in this location.
Okay.
And also, you want to know the average rainfall for this sub-basic, for this part of the catchment, the whole catchment.
So you want to know the areas for the sub basins.
Other for the subject for this.
Okay, well, GSHA computes the flow rate at any location in your stream network.
Yeah.
So if I have a stream network, I can get the flow rate. So here's my streams here. You have to compute it actually. Let's see. So I'd have to turn on this option, channel flow, channel depth. I could just turn on channel flow. But if I compute those, and I can also compute a hydrograph anywhere in my watershed. So I can go to any node in my watershed.
For any.
Any node and select hydrograph output at that
But
node.
you want to know, you can't determine the rainfall which affect this point.
I'm not sure what you mean, but we can talk about it later. Anyway, so let's look at our results. So the results are the depth. That's all that GSHA computed for this model. So here's the depths, a map of the depths for this storm. And this is just based on that spatial precipitation that I've defined.
My run has finished and it should be present, but nothing appears of.
Okay.
Only the hydrograph at the end. But through the. So.
You don't have the hydrograph here?
I have it.
You do have it?
No.
Or you do not?
See the flood movement.
The GSHA solution file is not
Spatial.
shredded spatially.
Only at the end.
Only the hydrograph, and there is no other. You remember the simulations that you showed to us, like each time step and
This
the
one?
water depth, etc. This one. Yeah, we don't have it.
I'll come look at it. I think we're done. So that's all I wanted to talk about today is just spatial precipitation. If you have specific questions, I'll come around and talk to you. And so let me look and see what you're doing.
But you say now we're going to have a few